what a great way to start out our family series than on Father's Day. And today we're going to have a fatherly conversation here on the stage with some great men that we have up here. I know you're going to be inspired. And I want to go ahead and just get this off the ground because we've got some good stories coming up, and I know you're going to be inspired. Our first one, I want to ask you, George. George drives bus for Berkeley County.
Yep.
Actually, you got a new job now?
Yeah. I'll be starting a new job real soon.
And what's your new job?
Charter bus driving.
He's charter bus driver.
So I've been doing it for almost a year.
Moving up to the big wheels.
Yep. But shout out to 233. Love my kids. That's right. Love my kids for life.
So George drove bus number 23. That was what you considered your church, your ministry on wheels.
Yep.
And George has ministered and just loved on so many kids over the years. And it was such an anointed bus that when it came up for auction, I made sure that we bought that bus for our school. Yep. And so we have it for Airborne Christian now. And George, a couple of weeks ago, you were inspiring us during our advance as our leaders right before church started. And you made a statement. It wasn't your key thing that you was talking about, but I'm going to tell you, once you made this statement, I couldn't hear anything else that you said. And the comment was, I've never met a bad kid. And I'm going to tell you, it just demanded the attention of every leader that was there. And I was like, what is he going to say about this? Can you take us back to that statement? Because it's definitely worth sharing to all our fathers and everybody listening here today. When you made that statement, would you tell us your perspective on that? I've never met a bad kid.
Absolutely. So it goes back to when I started bus driving and that whole journey. But it really started at this church, believe it or not. I've been serving for over 10 years. I lost count after 10. Ask Heather, she probably knows. But I remember when I started serving, and it was just something simple as I remember asking Mary Beth at the time, just place me where you think I would fit. And she put me with the first through third grade, which are an energetic bunch. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And so I remember I was just cool with helping. But what really developed that was I dealt with leaders' kids. Does anyone know what leaders' kids? The ones that are laughing know what I'm talking about. It means the ones that are there before service starts, they're there for 2 services. Andrew Hurley, you're laughing, I know why. And then they would be there afterwards. So they would be there a very, very long time. So they would get tired. They would find ways of being sneaky or just doing things that some would label as bad. Like sneaking out of the classroom before dismissal and having to be found later in another part of the building. And so, which I'm so grateful. Andrew, I just want to call you out personally. So, because I love you to pieces. So that kid taught me exactly the meaning of I've never met a bad kid, because there was so many times where people would be like, the Hurleys got out again. The Hurleys got out again. And I was just like, but I saw this spark in him. It reminded me so much of myself as a kid that was me as a kid. Like, I loved to just have fun, and if I could kind of bend the rules, I was bending them. Right, Mom? Yeah. And so I remember people just, especially as I went along and I started bus driving, and a lot of bus drivers are quick to say, oh my gosh, I got some bad kids on my bus. I got some bad kids. And I just developed early. I was like, I'm never, because it started here. And I was like, I'm not going to say or label that my kids are bad, because this church really stands for building for future generations. And I didn't really understand that until I became a parent. But it really deepened when I became a parent, because then I'm believing it for my own children. And then it expanded from that to everybody's children. And it really changed the whole way that I drove the bus. Even when I was substituting, I would deal with difficult kids. And it's okay to say difficult, but never once did I ever say that's a bad kid. Because you have no idea what these kids go through. You have no idea what their homes are like. You have no idea what the symptom of an attitude that you're getting, what they have gone through or what they're going through. So to label them based on a moment, I think is just wrong. Yeah. And so it's just fuzzy. You can clap for that. This is all just wisdom that God has given me, because I would pray before every single bus run before I would do it. Just help me shine your light, Lord. Help me shine your light. Help me love on these kids like you love them. And with that comes discipline, because I had to show my kids that I loved them as well as my own kids by discipline. Because I had people say, well, how do you deal with this situation? I'm like, I'll write them up. I will call home. I will call home in a heartbeat. Won't I call home in a heartbeat? Absolutely. And so, because I believe that's showing them love, because you're guiding them. You're taking them aside and saying, hey, what you're doing is not safe. You could get hurt by doing this. I know you don't see it because you're just having fun, like a kid sitting on the floor and they shouldn't, or just different things. Like, I'm very strict about like safety and things like that. But I use discipline to help guide, and a good thing that I remember going back to time and time again is to show grace and to show mercy, because that's what our God shows us all the time, especially me, because I need it like the most. But this one instance, I had a kid that he was making fun of some girl on the bus, or he did something like that, and I remember writing him up, and he was, I brought him in the office, he's in the principal's office, and he just comes clean about everything. And so I was just moved by that, because when I'm in that office, I'm not in there just to land a punishment. I'm in there to hopefully help guide them to make better decisions. And so in that moment, like, I was so touched by that. He's a fifth grader. And I said, that was such a big thing that you did. That was it took guts to do that, to be that honest. So what I'm going to do with this write-up? I tore it up in front of his face. And you should have looked at the kid. The look in his eyes is what still sticks with me, because I could just tell he had never received that grace before, ever. And it was game changing. And it just has challenged me to do that more and more. And I'm not perfect with it. I need to do that more with my own kids and stuff. But it just is moments like that help me when I'm back there teaching the kids to truly help build for the next generation, because they're going to remember things like that. They're going to remember who had their back,
That is so good, George. Aren't you glad you got teachers like this, inspiring, guiding your children? And it's so funny you brought up Andrew, because this past week, his father and I, we were together at a conference, and we were talking about our kids. And, it's just the Jeremiah 29:11. God, this is what God says about him. He's got a hope. He's got a plan. He's got a great future for them. And that's how God labels them. So in our discipline and in our guidance and direction, we've got to make sure that stays the focus. That's got to be the focus, that God's got a plan for them. But so Al and I, we were just talking about our kids, and I told him, I said, I'm so glad that Andrew has grown up to be a mature young man, and he has an influence on my son. But I was telling him, I said, when he was younger, and we said to each other, we got to make sure we champion one another's kids. No matter what they do, we got to make sure we do that, because they're going to grow up to be great young men. I said, but your son, man, he he was like a little terrorist. He was just bouncing off the walls everywhere. If there was something going on in the church, he was somehow in that story, something that was not just the way it should be. But I'm so proud of him. Now today he works for me, and what a great young man. But we spoke that over his life. Dads, speak that over your sons' lives, no matter what. Keep that the focus. Oh, George, that was fantastic. Never met a bad kid.
Yep. And I never will.
That's awesome. Now we have Jason Jones, and Jason has joined us in the last few years. How long have you been coming here to Airborne?
It's been about 3 years, a little over 3 years now, yeah.
Well, over 3 years.
1920.
And he has quite the family. And I want to go down through them, starting at Peyton. How old is Peyton?
Peyton's 10.
10 years old. You ought to see her play volleyball. She was on my team. I think the reason why we won is because we didn't have a weak point on our volleyball team, and I'll tell you what, she made some stuff happen. She'll die for that ball and everything.
I kept telling everybody not to hit it to her. Please don't hit it to Peyton, just because she's a girl.
And then your next one is age 12, and that's Pastor Eli.
Pastor Eli, that's a good name for him, yes.
So he preached our very last chapel service, and all of our students were involved in that. He just happened to be the preacher for that day, and I just think there's definitely God's hand on his life. And then we have Chase. He's 14 years old, and I played basketball against him the other day. Thought I could shut him down. I couldn't. I'll admit it. We lost. And then we have Tyler. Tyler is 16 years old. I know I can't shut him down in basketball. No. And then we have Caleb. Now, Caleb is 18 years old, and you've taken him into your home. You're a host home for Caleb. And is Caleb out there? Is he probably serving? Oh, okay. So you've seen him before. He's like 17 feet tall. You've seen him.
6'9".
He's such a great young man, and he's going to a breakthrough camp this year.
He is.
Just life-changing stuff that's happening to him, and largely that is because of your family, the guidance and the direction that you've been given him. And I just want to kind of bring to light how I don't want to say busy, but you guys travel everywhere together. I mean, it is like nonstop. Now we know what's going on in your family because our son is good friends with your family and the boys, and they do a lot together, and sometimes they're at each other's house. And when I hear of how many miles you guys are driving in that minivan, you must put on at least 100,000 miles a year, and you are together all the time. And I just would like you to speak to what that means to your family, for you as a dad, providing that quality time with them.
Yes, so it goes back about, let me think here. Now, growing up, my parents were very involved with us. I had 2 siblings, and we went everywhere together. So it kind of really started there. But about 13 years ago, I was coaching basketball, and it always seems to tie back to coaching basketball, but it kind of goes hand in hand, coaching and parenting. But I coached 8 years at Jefferson High School, and I was coaching with a legendary coach, Bob Starkey. And he had been coaching for 50 or 60 years, all-time winningest coach at Shepherd, won state championships. And I think Julie was pregnant with Eli. And he had been our 3rd kid in 10 years, 12 years. And it was just getting hard for me to coach because coaching takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time away from the family. You include them as much as you can, but it's just one of those things where I'm thinking, Julie needs me, and we were talking, and So I go and I don't want to, I decide to resign, to resign from the position because I had aspirations of taking over the program once he retired and being this great high school coach for years and years and coaching for 50 or 60 years like he did. And I sat down, I talked to him, and he was a wonderful human being, Christian man, Christian leader. And I sat down, I said, Coach, Julie's, we're having another kid, and I got to be home more. And he looked at me and he said, Jason, he's like, you have my blessing. He's like, the biggest thing that I regret in my 60 years of coaching is that I spent more time coaching other parents' kids than I spent with my own. And I said, and that stuck with me. And he said, so you go be a dad. He said, you go be a dad and you be the best dad you can. Good. And I did. And I took his advice, and that's why we do everything together. Taking Caleb on his recruiting trip, and I'm sorry if I get emotional. That's just part of being a dad. He said that he came into our family, and he kind of, I don't want to say completed the family, but he really brought us full circle. And now that he's getting ready to go off to college, he said when he's going off to these recruiting trips and stuff like that, these coaches want to bring him into the campus, and they want to bring him in. And he said, no, I don't come unless my whole family comes. All 6 of us, all 7 of us. So anywhere we go now, we all, like, we went on a visit last week together. We're scheduling another visit, and we're all going together. And these coaches are like, how do you guys do it? With all the kids at their ages. And we're just like, we trust in God. We trust in Him. We know He'll provide, especially with grocery bills. Wow. And Caleb's added to that. But just being present and being intentional about it, I think, is big. That word intentional, you got to want to do it, and you got to want to do it for the right reason. So we always just say we just do it, and we know we're very faithful in everything. And I took Coach's words to heart, and I've never looked back. So
that's great, Jason. Yeah. I think sometimes we can say, well, we're just busy, or we're too busy. We don't have time to do that. But you don't see it as being busy. I mean, for me on the outside looking out, I'm like, wow, you got all those boys and your girl, and they're all involved in sports and activities, and
Can I say
just
something
incredible.
Real quick? Sorry to interrupt, but just so I don't forget. So last week, Julie took Caleb and our kids to Pennsylvania to visit his relatives, right? And of course, I had to work. So I'm at home by myself for I think it's 2 or 3 days. And it was awful. It was. I was so bored. Me and the dog bonded. Because I called my brothers and I called a couple buddies and said, hey, you guys want to go golfing? You want to do something? Everybody was kind of, everybody's busy. And they had a blast. They had a blast in visiting his family with an amusement park. They're calling me all this stuff they're doing. They're like, what'd you do? I said, well, I gave the dog a bath, and I cut the grass. And I'm watching golf on TV. So the U.S. Open was on, thank goodness. So I got to watch a little bit of golf. But I was so bored. And when they came home, I couldn't have been happier. I was like, I'm so happy you guys are back. And what did we do? We jumped in the car and we all went to D.C. yesterday for a basketball tournament. And they were arguing and fighting in the car. I'm just thinking, I miss this. I miss it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I think what we can say to dads is turn your busy into purpose.
Yeah.
When you turn your busy into purpose, there's nothing that'll feed your soul and feed your worth and feed your value more than that. So we can use that excuse. Anybody can use it. It just doesn't really work when it comes to our kids. Push that busy aside, turn it into purpose. And I'm just thankful, Jason, that we've got dads like yourself in our church. And Beth says it all the time, strong men. They're strong men. There's a lot of them in our church. That's just the way it is. And we've got great examples. And yet another one that you're talking about here today. And I know you have lots going on in business too, but you just make it work. You just make purpose happen. And I appreciate that about you.
And back to the business part, I had opportunities over the years to take other jobs, to to go off to where I'd be out of town and traveling a lot, and we sacrifice a lot of, like, no, I like, I own my own insurance agency basically now, but that I always wanted to do that because that would give me the freedom, hey, to be at every practice, to go to the doctor's appointments if I got to take the kids to the doctor's appointment. I didn't want to have to ask somebody to take a day off to do that. I wanted to be able to have that control and that freedom, because you can't put a dollar figure on that at all. You cannot that freedom being there for your kids, or if they want to have to come into work with you or whatever. I always wanted that freedom, and that's where Julie and I decided to focus my career on, and she's of course a stay-at-home, but runs some of our investments. But and she's taken that avenue as well to be as available for the kids as we can be at all times, no matter what. Because you only have, I look at it this way too, you only have a certain number of years to get them prepared to go off into the world. And these are precious years right now, because they're going to go off to college, they're going to go off to, whatever they decide to do after school. And these are very, very important. The years that they're at home are the most important years, and you have the ability to make the best impact on them and give them the tools that they need to go out and fight the good fight. That's why we're thankful for this church. And as a dad, you can't always say the right things to your kids or give them the right advice, but you can put them in the situation where they know the right people that they can go talk to. So when I saw Chase and Eli and all the boys over there walk up and for prayer like they do all the time, and I see a man like Pastor Kevin praying over them, I know I've done my job as putting them in the places where they need to be for that guy. And so maybe I can't always, like I said, say the right thing or give them the right prayer or whatever. But I'm very, very thankful for this place, that we have this place to call home. And I think as parents, we feel like we've done a good job with that. So
fantastic. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Well, our guy over there on the end is Herb Keith, and he is the head executive chef now at University of Maryland. And Herb, God has been doing so much in your life over the last 3 years. It's just been a great story to follow, and the story of your life, Heather's life, Jordan's life is it's just full of many chapters. They're not all good. There's several chapters there, really difficult for yourself, for them. But God is best at putting things back together. That's when you know, when things come back together, that God is working. And what a powerful story for people to learn about, that it ain't always over like people think it's over. God is still ready to do his best work in our lives. Can you speak to the backstory and a little bit about what led you back to reuniting with your son, Jordan, and getting married to Heather?
Absolutely. Ours is definitely a story of grace, redemption, and restoration. So God had to work through me, and he gave me grace. He removed the fear and the shame, and he gave me the confidence to go make things right, restore my relationship with Jordan. And not only that, restoring a relationship with Heather, and ultimately marrying her, and we have our family back. But back in 2018, that's when I made the decision, I needed to reach out and make things right. And like Joel 20:25 says, I will restore the years that the locust has taken away. And so for 12 years, I let the locust take away from me. So let me say that again. I'll let the locust take it away from me, because how many know that you have to let the enemy take it away? Like, he just don't take it away. That was free. But God. So I'll never forget the day I drove 5 hours from Charleston, West Virginia to meet Jordan for the very first time. I was nervous. My palms were sweaty like they are today. But as soon as I walked up on that front porch, he met me with open arms. And from that day forward, I've been in his life, every single day. One of the first things we did together, we went fishing, and he's the fisherman. He's the pro bass fisherman today because of that. And over these past years, I've had the honor of watching him grow into a teenager, into a young man, and that's just the best feeling ever. I mean, I can't even describe the feeling it is just to be his dad, to watch his teenage years, to watch him hit home runs, to watch him serve in church, to watch how humble he is, how just amazing he is. And now today, that it chokes me up every time we're on sound and lights together back there, just serving in our church together. So, this feeling is indescribable. And one of the things my mentor told me is like when the man gets better, everything gets better. And when I got better, my family got better, my marriage got better, my relationships got better, and like I said, and that's all just for the grace of God, the glory of God, and you can never take that for granted.
Wow. So for 12 years, and you went to meet your son for the first time, and man, God must have been all over that.
God was all over that. Like I said, he worked on me first, opened my heart, took the hardness away, took the fear away. And, just like I say, on that 5-hour trip, I was just a lot of prayer, just praying God and just thanking God for the opportunity. And like I said, in the course, the fear was there because I didn't know, like, how's he going to react? But when he opened his arms and we hugged for the first time, I mean, everything just went away, and it was just like I never was. It was just restored everything. Like I think one of the first things you told me, Pastor Kevin, that restoration, he's going to restore the grasp under my feet.
Yeah.
And he definitely did that.
Yeah. I remember you were sitting right down there when I came down to you.
Yeah.
And I didn't know who you was. And I really had that word to go up and speak to you, that everything the enemy has stolen from you, that even the soil underneath your feet, that he has taken nutrients from, that God will restore even that underneath your feet. There isn't anything that he won't restore. That's when he does his best stuff. And I just knew something incredible was coming. And Beth and I got to marry you and Heather, and I've had my eye on you. I've been watching you, and I'll tell you why I've been watching you, because it's just so beautiful to watch the redemption story of God live in somebody's marriage, in that interaction between you and son. I was at the baseball game the other day, and I just knew Jordan was going to hit a home run. I'm like, and if he doesn't, I'm going to go shaking. But no, he hit a home run, and he's just a great athlete. And all I wanted to do was watch you. I wanted to see your expression, because it's kind of what we dads look for, and to see your celebration and just how proud you was as he comes running around and people are cheering for him and everything. I just had to tell the devil he stinks. He just cannot hold back what God has put together. He can't stop what God is doing in a man's life. And I just want to say this to any man that's out there today. You say, wow, you go back to his 12 years of just not being able to find his way, and you find yourself in that story. God can change that. God can change. Don't you think for a second. Don't listen to the lies of the enemy anymore. God can change that. Maybe you're a man in your house and relationship is not good with son or daughter or wife. God can change that. When things get better with a man, everything gets better. I love that. That is such a great statement. That can start today. That can start today. I hope you're hearing that through the filter of your own story and what God would want to do in your life, because none of these men up here are perfect. We're all broken, but yet we are also put together by God. And then no matter how many times we get broken, God picks us back up again. He puts us together, puts our feet on stable ground, and off we go doing what God has called us to do. And I'm just so thankful, Herb, that this story has played out just as God has written it. And you know, when the enemy steals a chapter of our lives, God just rewrites it. God just rewrites it. That's grace. God's always adapting to our failure points to turn us around and get us right back on the path. You know, and sometimes we think, oh, there's so many things would have to, no, just start changing. Just start changing. Just admit and just make that phone call, show up. Be the person God wants you to be. He'll help you the rest of the way. Make the first step. Make the first step and let God help you. Well, we're going to wind this thing up here today. And I just want to kind of go down through you guys here and just ask you, what's the favorite thing that you get to do with your children? George?
For me, it's whenever we're playing, like they love going to the park, and I always make the mistake of thinking whenever I take them to the park that they're going to play. No, that means that I'm going to play too. So, which is always probably funny for everybody else that gets to watch this 36-year-old bear of a man, you know, on top of monkey bars or chasing my kids around. But I love it. Yeah. I absolutely love it.
That's cool. Jason?
Coaching them. I love coaching my kids. I've gotten to coach all of them except I got to coach Peyton next in basketball. She keeps reminding me, Dad, you haven't coached me yet. But I've thoroughly enjoyed coaching all three of the boys so far. So that's got to be my favorite. Well, Peyton and I, we'll go shopping. And she's, you know, she's saying, and we're dangerous. And we come home with stuff, and Julie looks at us like, you guys are dangerous together. So I do enjoy that with her, though. It's fun. So
that's great. Herb, what do you like to do with Jordan?
Well, we're outdoorsmen. We love the outdoors, and we love to fish. Even during COVID, like that was our outlet. We probably fished here from everywhere, from Maryland all the way to Virginia. So every opportunity we get to get outdoors and just enjoy nature, enjoy God's creation, we take advantage of it.
That's great. That's great. For me, what I love to do with Eldon, actually, this kind of turned around a little bit. It's what he does to inspire me. Them are my favorite moments with him, because every time we get together, we're gonna go do something. He wants to know who's gonna do it with us. I'm like, isn't Dad enough? No, Dad, don't see it that way. I like more people involved, you know. And if we're gonna have a cookout, you know, Ethan and Cammie is gonna come, and Nikki and Megan, you know. And he just goes down through the whole family. What are they doing? Well, why aren't they coming? And he's such a family guy. And so when we plan stuff with Eldon, we're trying to plan something for the whole family. And that is when I'm happiest, is when the whole family is together. And I'm so glad that he's going to carry on that legacy. And our family future is bright because of that. Well, let's stand up. I want to pray for everybody. Everybody stand up. Give these guys a great hand here today. They did so well. Such inspiration.